What's going on, y'all? Today, we are going to talk about finding your voice, why people struggle to do so, why it's so important, and how you can get started finding it right now so that you can go forth, speak boldly, and bend reality to your will. So, your voice tells the world who you are. Finding your voice, though, is more than just figuring out what you say and how you say it. Finding your voice is a practice, it's ongoing, it requires daily work with an end goal or destination neither in sight nor expected. It's also about expressing yourself and constantly seeking to strip away influences that keep expression from being anything other than a pure representation of your soul. So it's about figuring out who you are on a given day, in a given moment, and sharing your perspective with the world with courage and integrity. I work with entrepreneurs, with executives, with individual contributors, heavily in the professional world. But just because you are a professional does not mean that you are not creative, that you are not an artist, that what you are doing, even in that professional sphere, is not creative or artistic. I would encourage you to consider that it is, or to consider that it may be what it might be like. Listen to this quote from Rick Rubin. This is from his book, A Creative Act, A Way of Being. And remember, we're thinking about the voice, figurative and literal, all parts of it, as being an expression of us, and we are artists. We are creatives, no matter what we're doing. To be a human being is to be a creator, an artist. What Rick Rubin says here: the goal of art isn't to attain perfection. The goal is to share who we are and how we see the world. Artists allow us to see what we are unable to see, but somehow already know. It may be a view of the world singularly different from our own, or one so close it seems miraculous, as if the artist is looking through our own eyes. In either case, the artist's perception reminds us of who we are and who we can be. So, yes, finding your voice is important for a tremendous amount of reasons. We'll touch on a few in a second. But what the end of that quote makes me think of is that finding your voice is integral, if for no other reason than you finding your voice enables, empowers, inspires somebody else to find theirs. And humans are meaning-making creatures. This is meaning-making creatures. So this is just one more bit of structure or support that I choose to add into my view of the world. That person can only be reached by you. Nobody else. So it's imperative for you to find your voice, because you are a symbol for somebody to break free in the same way. And that person can only be reached, can only be inspired by you undertaking this quest courageously. So, finding your voice is also about figuring out what you want, as free from any hidden mimetic desires as possible. We cannot avoid mimetic desire, so we might as well just embrace it, weaponize it for our own devices. It's about curiosity of oneself. Being curious about yourself is a great way to learn more about other people, because we cannot exist here without other people. So you find your voice, you undertake the process of finding your voice, you also start to unlock tremendous ways of connecting and communicating, seeing other people, figuring out what's going on. All right, so now why do people struggle to find their voice, right? I believe that using the voice powerfully is our birthright as humans. I've spoken about this before, but if we look at babies and we learn from them because they are the most optimal voice, or they use their voice in the most optimal way on the planet, then we can see that this is something that we come out of the womb with. Not just producing the voice, but using it to get what we want, and without fear, without shame. A lot of what I do is help people unlearn what's unnatural so that they can show up to professional situations as their most charismatic, commanding, and authentic selves without losing any relevance. And a baby does just that. So people struggle to find their voice partially because of these things that we pick up along the way, and this instinct that gets squashed, this ability that gets squashed out of us, whether by stories other people tell us about ourselves that we then take on as true, as gospel, or from pressure to conform. But one of the reasons that people struggle to find their voice is because of expectations, similar to fitness and nutrition. Once I get to this result, then I'm good. I don't have to keep on working, or I'm not getting to this result on this timeline that who knows where I got it from, but therefore it must be a waste. It was all for naught. It's this expectation that once it's found, it's going to be there forever, instead of something that must be continually nurtured and protected while also being expanded and grown. This is something I'll always take everything back to fitness and to the gym. I'm a meathead. I'm not trying to hide that. But when I was approaching my practice of fitness, nutrition, having an awesome body that complements my life without running it, I would end up in this cycle of get the goal that I set out to achieve, and then find out that it was not nearly as fulfilling as I thought that it would be, and then abandon all of the habits and the practices that got me that result. In the more recent times, the past 2 years, I have completely adjusted my perspective on this practice. Now I just go because that's what I do. I go train every single day. I eat a certain way every single day so that I can live the life that I want to live. And not only has my adherence been much greater, right? Like, I don't miss, but my results have been not only they are more impressive by every metric, but I keep them, and then I can build upon them. That's because my expectations have changed. I'm just set now that this is something I'm going to do forever. I'm not only going to be doing this forever, but I'm doing this right now to set me up for a better forever. We are going to die, or this body is going to expire. This organism is going to expire at some point. So I'm in the game of training and of eating in a certain way until this organism is no more. If you don't look at it like that, then you're like, oh my God, I have to do this. If I want to look this way, feel this way, then I have to do this every day until I die. Oh my God. It's like, yeah. What else are you going to do? Scroll, play a game? Like, that's what you want your life to be? We did not choose to be here, but we can choose how much we want to get out of this experience, how hard we are willing to work, and what perspective we are going to put on that hard work. For me, I have found that choosing to view life and everything that goes in it as a state of play, and choosing to believe that excellence is fun, has made a world of difference. So People struggle because of those expectations. And we struggle because people accept that they accept average, right? Accepting average as good enough. Hey, as my voice is, literally or figuratively, there's no problem. It's not the worst. It's not the best. Or I thought this is just how I am. Well, if you don't like something, you can change it. If you want to get better at something, get better at it. If you're already pretty good at something, why not seek out leveling up to be world class? So much of this is mindset, is choosing to operate as an A player. Are A players made? Are they born? It's a combination of both. No A player is relying just on how they are. They are continually seeking to get better. And if belief or if behavior precedes belief, then doing what an A player does or would do either is going to turn you into an A player or reaffirms the fact that you are already an A player. We also struggle to find our voice because of pressure to conform. I touched on this a little bit earlier. For a human being, it is instinctual to fit in because this hardware, this software is millions of years old. To not be a part of the tribe meant that you did not have resources, you did not have safety. Terrifying, because that means death, and that means an unpleasant death. So we conform, we talk like other people. If everyone's talking with vocal fry, then we get the kind of stereotypical Valley girl. There's another trend that's happening seemingly worldwide, which is, some people call it uptalk. I think about it like making statements that sound like questions. So if you're around a bunch of people who make statements that sound like questions or that have this uptalk, then you are going to do that. Even if there's a part of you that goes, I hate that. I hate how that sounds. I hate how that feels to listen to or to put on myself. Pressure to conform. And that can be either conscious or subconscious. Or that's refraining from saying something. I can't say that, or I can't sound like that. And this then gets into the stories that we tell ourselves, which is the major reason that people struggle. I can't say that because if I do, then this. Or I can't sound like that because this. And we'll touch on all of this, the literal and the figurative, and these, what I have dubbed the identity layer of finding your voice. Questions to ask yourself, etc., to get started a little bit later. That's the underpinning of all this, because if you have the most dialed in literal voice and you have the most optimal figurative voice, if the stories that you tell yourself around who you are don't line up with what the moment demands, then you are never going to use that ideal literal and figurative voice. More variations of stories or versions of stories could be that it needs to be more, that this, whatever it is, needs to be more difficult. It couldn't be this simple. I won't let myself accept it because it doesn't seem to have cost enough. Or I don't deserve that, right? You ever get into a place where you are this close to getting what you wanted and worked so hard for, and then right as it's about to become a reality, you talk yourself out of it? Or you start to self-sabotage so that you don't get it because we're telling ourselves that we don't deserve this thing. Or if I do X, then people will Y. Another reason that people also struggle to find their voices is because this is not taught in school. Add it to the long list of subjects and learning that is not taught in our school curriculum that should be. That has meaningful material impact on our quality of life. I had to go to multiple different schools and have a ton of losses, ton of failure, ton of very varied life experience in order just to figure these skills out for myself. So finding your voice is imperative. It's an act of creativity, and true creativity demands that you set out on a quest to find your voice. Why would you want to go out on a quest? That sounds scary, like we are embarking out of the comfort zone. Yes, it is. Why is finding your voice important then? Because it's everything. Finding your voice is everything. It's how you get what you want. It's how you get support when you need help. It's how you figure out what you want and what you don't want. It's how you figure out who you are and what you believe, what you will and won't stand for. When you find your voice, you become deeply and unshakably confident. Rather, when you start down the path of finding your voice and you commit to it, you experience fulfillment because not only are you more productive, you're being true to yourself. And you know that you have the ability to make something real, to bend reality to your will. You make more money, you have deeper connections, you make more friends. Let me give you an example of this. I did not come out of the womb sounding, speaking, acting, any of this way. Like I mentioned, I had to go to a bunch of different schools. I had to have a bunch of varied, crazy, and intense life experiences to figure a lot of this out. But on the timeline, the majority of that stuff happened before I ever started helping people to find their voice. So when I was first committing to go all in on this path, entrepreneurship is another practice, right? Entrepreneurship itself is a tremendous expression of finding your voice. I was counseled to write a book. So I outlined this book. Have I written it yet? No, because I'm not plugging it. Believe me, everybody will know when this book is out. It's just like the very nature of what we're talking about. This book, or topics of which book should be written first, have evolved. New players have entered the game. This outline, though, is still relevant, if for no other reason than it being a great example of you are always, like, finding your voice is never finished. You're always trying to find it. So let me give you this example here. In marketing and entrepreneurship and business, there is a belief that you should be your own first case study. Or if for whatever reason that's not applicable, you should have one really, really awesome transformative case study. So when I wrote this out, right, what are the problems the big problems, overarching problems that you solve? I wrote them down. I was like, these are great problems. And I was like, could I be my first case study here? I don't think so. Well, that is just the hubris of ignorance, because the deeper that I got in this path, the more I was like, whoa, I am becoming my own first case study. I'm not solved yet, but I definitely have these problems that I wrote down. So the first problem that I wrote down was that you're ashamed. You don't have confidence, or you feel shame in how you sound and or show up to the world, and you think it's never going to change. Problem number 2, you don't think you have anything valuable to offer, or if you do, you don't know how to communicate that to others. Problem number 3, you're afraid. Even if you did like how you sounded or knew how to communicate your value to others, you wouldn't, because you're worried about what they'd think. Problem number 4, you don't trust yourself. You burn out or you burn down because you're not clear on why you're working so hard, or because you don't trust yourself with increasing responsibility and opportunity. So I looked at all this and I was like, yeah, I mean, I sound great. I have full command of my voice. I know I do. I know I have valuable things to offer. I tell myself I'm not afraid. And I totally trust myself and I'm not going to burn out or burn down. But lo and behold, like, not true. Each one of these problems, sometimes all of them on a given day, are things that I struggle with. And once I think that I found them, because life does not stand still, we cannot stand still either. Once I think that I found them, that's true only for a moment. And then the next day, the next minute, there's a new idea, some new feedback, a new realization, some intuition, some guidance, something. I'm like, no, I'm so I'm so far away. I thought I was right there. Nope. Not even close. So let's discuss the actual process of finding the literal, the figurative, and the identity, right? The literal voice, we'll start there. When we say, let's find your voice, and we mean it literally, that's searching for, finding by experimentation, what is the most beautiful, expressive, healthy sound that you can make with your voice. The actual mechanisms, how it all fits together, the coordination, what you hear when you are making those sounds, what you experience in your body. Because we can never hear ourselves the way that we actually sound because of ears and anatomy. But what we can do is get used to what we do hear and line that up with what we know to be beautiful and natural and healthy. And then we can also become aware of what the sensations that we feel are when we are making those sounds, and then how we can cue ourselves, what our sort of anchors are that cue us into that coordination. For example, if somebody speaks on vocal fry, right? Vocal fry is when the folds are meeting, but there's no airflow. Okay, so we get somebody used to the sensations and the sound of speaking without vocal fry. Or if they're really, really nasal, then we do the same thing there. Or if they have that endemic, all of these things are terribly, goes beyond annoying, uptalk, where they make the statements that sound like questions, then we get people used to the sounds and the coordination, the sensations of making a statement definitively. With the figurative voice, then we're looking for the what you say. And figurative voice applies primarily to the professional realm. You are selling yourself, or you're selling a product or service. So I've worked with people on this for interview prep, to help somebody break into a new industry, to help somebody break into a different role within an industry, or to help them land their dream job or land at a much bigger, more prominent employer than they would have thought possible. For founders to work on their pitch of their product, for entrepreneurs to help entrepreneurs or sales teams to help find more relevant and compelling messaging for their product. You've got to ask yourself some questions like, what problems do you solve for your customers? Okay, great. Explain what you do like I'm 5. What makes you unique compared to your competitors? Why should someone choose you? So these are the figurative voice. These questions will help you figure out what your figurative voice is. But then we get to me, this is the most interesting layer, is the identity. What would you, and the reason that this is important is because it shapes not only what you are working on, what you're applying that figurative voice to, but it will help you to go deeper, be more bold in that figurative voice and in the use of your literal voice. It helps us to make sure that there's congruence. It helps us to avoid burnout. What would you do if money were of no concern? What's your perfect day look like? What do you believe? What do you want? Where do those beliefs and desires come from? What is the story you tell yourself about that? What evidence do you have to support that? Is this story true? What would be possible if this story were not true? What is the opposite story? And you've got to give yourself permission to rewrite the story or that desire without changing the facts. And the reason that this makes for such a powerful accelerant or potentiator for the use of the literal and the figurative voice is because once you figure these things out, and let's assume that whatever it is that you're selling or offering is aligned with what you've discovered with these identity layer questions, then the use of your literal voice and the courage, the boldness with which you will answer those questions for the figurative voice, it takes on this new magnetism because it's then coming more deeply from you. What we want to get to is a place of spontaneity and authenticity in communication. And if you have answers to these questions, and you also have gone really deep and you continue to do this every day, like we said, it's a practice, then when it comes time to use your literal and figurative voice, the odds of you being unfiltered, unrestrained, totally spontaneous then makes it more authentic, then makes it more compelling. Because we're getting a glimpse into, or you're letting us into, like Rick Rubin was saying, it's how you see the world. This is a powerful way to avoid commoditization of not just your service, but of you. And that's how you find your voice. At least that's how I am finding my voice. I'm much better. I'm much closer to finding it than I was a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I no longer believe that I have figured it out or that I will ever figure it out. And that surrender, that acceptance, enables me to approach all of this from a more authentic state of play. And these are positive feedback loops that feed into everything else that I'm doing. And finding positive feedback loops helps you to stay on track. I think of them like guardrails. The more positive feedback loops you have, the more easily you can generate and sustain momentum. The better quality life you're going to have. Because you have found and you are using your voice. It's about practice. It's about courage. It's about selflessness. It's about fun. So, when I say go forth and speak boldly, that's what I mean. Don't have it figured all out. You will never have it figured all out. But you know why you rock. You know who you are. And you're comfortable not knowing everything. If you want some help finding your voice, I've got a ton of resources that finding either your literal or your figurative voice. I've got a ton of free resources that are linked in the show notes wherever you were listening to this. And you can also get in touch with me on any social platform at Michael Hewitt23. Shoot me a DM. Let me know what your questions are. And if you are a professional and you want to work on finding your voice for either yourself, your team, if you are a sales leader, or your organization, get in touch with me. Glad to help. All right, friends. Getting out of here. Go forth and speak boldly.